All right. Ah, da, da, da. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm your host for today's broadcast, Insanely Year 13, as we're preparing to get underway for our 6th round here for the IESC GT Championship. Our first race outside of the confines of the United States as we go to the island nation of Japan for one of my personal favorite tracks in the entire world, Suzuka. Now, Suzuka is a circuit that doesn't lend itself to very many overtaking opportunities. It's a handling-focused track, but unlike Laguna Seca last week, which had those same abilities, Suzuka is a much more downforce focused circuit, and top speed has a lot of impact here as well. You have 2 long straightaways at this circuit, and the run down into Spoon is a large, high speed, constantly constant turn corner / straight hybrid. So you have 2.5 different parts of the track where top speed means a lot. You can have a car that may not be ideal, not bad, but just a little bit off of ideal when it comes to the corners. But be good enough in the straightaways, and you might be able to get your positions back. We're going to go ahead real quickly and run you down through the championship. But interesting note, Scored Buffalo, for the first time in several weeks, did not win the pole in today's event. He's on the front row. He'll be starting second, but that means that he's going to be starting on the outside row, I believe. And with that in mind, Buffalo, who has historically been very, very weak at starts and restarts, this could really end up harming his ability to make his way up to the front here. So, real quickly, let's go ahead and look over the championship standings as they are right now. Going from the bottom to the top, last place in the championship right now is TheTireBarrier with 42.5 points. 30th is Boiled 88 with 80 points. 29th is Dino Prime 77 with 95 points. Then there is a 28th, which is SDR Dremora, who has 100 points. 27th is Porsche FL with 110 points. 26th is Coca Gamer 11 with 120 points. 25th is DMS Suspect with 125 points. 24th is Flag 4199 with 27.5 points. 23rd is Rockmorrow with 160. 22nd is RZM Shaun with 170 points. 21st is RZM Valkyrie with 180. 20th is Tactical Fallout with 185 points. 19th in the championship is LMP Grizz with 230 points, which puts him in a tie with LZM Brett. 230 points each there in that tie for 18th. 17th is TMS Bumdrop with 305 points. 16th is larrybtheg with 325 points. 15th is RZM Arsenal with 330 points. 14th is GRM Jagged with 370 points. 13th is Mexican Badass with 375. 12th is TTJ111. He has 380 points. 11th is TFB Matter with 400. Then we get to our top 10. 10th is NFL Racer 4812, he has 475 points on the season. 9th is Lud1cr0us Sp33d with 495 points on the season. 8th is Mabey Racing with 560 points. 7th is RZX U5AMVP, he has 575 points. 6th is Prius Killer 8110, he has 615 points. 5th is SRD Shredder, he has 665 points. 4th is TNR Horizon, he has 680 points. 3rd is Mr. Sunshine with 705. And your primary championship contenders, 2nd is LuckyVII, he has 760 points, and your championship leader is still Scored Buffalo with 889 points at this stage in the season. Of note, though, one of the most important things to take into consideration. Oh, wait, before we get into that, real quickly, when it comes to challenges, no one is taking any challenges at all for today's event. So this season, it seems like challenges just really aren't in the cards for a lot of drivers. Many people just don't seem to really care too much about them. Real quickly, though, I do want to go ahead and talk about the build list for the cars, because there has been a significant change with how everything is set up when it comes to the balancing of the vehicles here. I'm going to scroll back through the information real quickly just so I can go ahead and get a decent talk. But a lot of cars got overhauled in the BOP. So what ended up happening is, after the BMWs have continued to blow out all of their competition, regardless of the quality of the driver inside of them, what has happened is that the BMWs have not gotten nerfed. Neither has the Bentley or the Astons. but almost every other manufacturer in the game has now gotten manipulated to try and make them faster to those which are considered the top 3 fastest cars right now. Real quick, heading up here. All right, so as it is, the cars that got the changes, we are looking at the Dodge, which I do not believe anyone... Oh, GRM Jagged is running the Dodge in today's event, as is Porsche FL. The Corvette was also changed. Ferrari also ended up with a significant change. The Lamborghini was given a change, and the Porsche was also given a change in today's event. So the Ferrari and the Porsche have gotten a buff to their power. The Dodge has also got a significant buff in its overall power. The Lamborghini now has more rear-end grip, and it will also be a significant amount lighter. The Corvette, which already has been a car that has a massive advantage when it comes to its handling capabilities coming out of corners, it now has even wider tires, so it's now further disadvantaged with even more grip. As we now prepare to load onto the circuit, 17 drivers will be taking to the circuit in today's event. And again, your 2 championship contenders, LuckyVII and Scored Buffalo, first and second. Mr. Sunshine is 7th. He is 3rd in the championship. If something was to happen to the 2 of them, with that Porsche getting an upgrade, and those 2 cars at the top, they did not get upgrades, Sunshine could start reeling the title fight in, but he needs bad luck to happen to both of our top 2 championship contenders as it is right now. Lucky lost ground in the championship after last week's event due to the fact that Buffalo ended up counterbalancing all the points he lost at Road America 2 weeks ago because he got pole, he got the fastest in-race lap, and he won the race from the pole. That can net you a total of 20 extra points. So all the points that Scored Buffalo lost at Road America, he has basically earned them back last week at Laguna Seca. So overall, it is still basically a 1 race difference in points realistically between Lucky and Scored Buffalo. Actually, a little bit less than 1 race difference because Buffalo also did not make it to the end of Buffalo did not make it quite into the podium positions when they had their race at Sebring earlier in the season. He made it to the podium positions, but a 1-lap shootout, which all the drivers said was bullcrap. The series bowed to the wishes of the drivers. Horrible idea, but that's what they chose to do. Ended up working in that favor. So anyways, real quickly as we look through the field, I'm going to just go from the back to the front here. TFB Matter is going to be 17th. TMS Aspect will be starting 16th. Porsche FL will be starting 15th. 14th will be GRM Jagged. 13th will be TTJ111. 12th will be SRD Shredder. 11th will be Prius Killer 8110. 10th will be Rockmorrow. 9th will be TNR Horizon. 8th will be Mabey Racing. 7th is Mr. Sunshine. 6th is Lud1cr0us Speed. 5th is RZM Brett. 4th is RZX U5AMVP. 3rd is TNR Brian. 2nd is Scored Buffalo. And your pole sitter is going to be LuckyVII. But what we're going to do is, I'm not really going to focus on Lucky at the start. We know that he's good on starts and restarts. I want to focus on Scored Buffalo, because Buffalo's ability to get off the line and actually at least stay in second is going to be incredibly important. If he has another start like he's had over most of the season, where he drops anywhere from 1 to 4 positions on a start or a restart, this could really harm him, because there are now Chevrolets that are having a little bit more grip, and this circuit will favor the Chevrolets' advantage when it comes to their overall grip amounts. All right, field will double up. We have 17 cars, so that will be 8 rows of 6, and then 1 last car at the back of the field. Start-finish line is about halfway down the straightaway, and we know that Lucky has a car that will be great on acceleration. As they come to the start-finish line, 36 laps are running here, green flag, and we are off at Suzuka, and Scored Buffalo did not have the run he wanted. TNR Bryant is on his inside, making it side-by-side for a second position, with RZX U5 and Lud1cr0us Speed just behind, ready to capitalize as they come out of turn 1 now. Oh, big sideways moment. That was TJ who got a little bit sideways coming out of the turn there, but everyone's going to keep it together, and the field will pull into the S's now without issue. All right, and now this is where things are going to get really interesting here. It's going to take a little bit, I imagine, for the field to start spreading out, simply just because of how many cars we have. But of note, Scored Buffalo has fallen from 2nd to 3rd, so he has to make up 2 positions. And now here comes RZX U5. Again, Chevrolets will have a significant advantage when it comes to grip. They'll have probably the best grip in the middle and exit of the corners compared to any other car. The strength of the BMWs have been primarily entering and mid-corner throughout the majority of the season, as far as I could tell, with also a small advantage, not nearly as much as what the Chevy has. Oh, and Ludacris gets into U5 back there, and that's going to cause a stack up that will mean that the top 3 now will end up pulling away from the rest of the field. They are all over each other back there for that farther position, and they're side by side for a second as well. But I want to look at this, because Mr. Sunshine has moved up ahead of Mabey Racing. Here we are in 4th position now. Mabey trying to get to the inside of Sunshine. Rockmorrow's there, and Sunshine can now see the championship contenders ahead. Scored Buffalo is having trouble getting around TNR Bryant, and LuckyVII is scooting away from the field. Sunshine in that Porsche got a big buff when it comes to overall power. He's using that to pull away from the rest of the field right now. Here they come in the 130R for the first time today as they dive into this high-speed corner. You see Rockmorrow now gain ahead of Mabey Racing back there. Mabey Racing in the BMWs. Again, BMWs did not get buffed. Neither did the Bentleys, neither did the Aston Martins. Now we see TNR Horizon coming up. Horizon's car did not get a buff. He's just not shown up recently, but now that he's back, we see him making a move up through the grid here. All right, as we look farther up, though, TNR Bryant and Scored Buffalo continuing to have their little fight. Buffalo is completely sideways as they go into turn number 1. Bryant's taking a wider line. It looks like the fights are really farther back in the field. I want to look at Ludacris' speed. He was up there fighting for a top 5, but now after that contact coming out of the hairpin, he has dropped all the way back to 12th position. This is a horrible scenario for Ludacris' speed. Not what he wanted to deal with in the slightest. He's now trapped behind TTJ, the driver that he's spent a lot of time fighting at 2 of our last 3 races, Laguna-Seca and Watkins Glen. Ludacris Speed is one of the drivers who was already down in the points hole. He missed the race. He ended up missing the Road America event, and right now is kind of in a fight of his own, just trying to claw back as many points as possible. You can see them all over each other, 2 and nearly 3 wide just ahead of this group. You can see there goes RZX AMVP. He now has gone off the circuit there. In that double right-hand corner, TJ gets right behind Shredder. Shredder is behind Prius Killer, and RZX now drops to 12. So this puts Ludacris Speed now around Shredder. He gets to the inside of Shredder as they're side-by-side for 10th position. TJ's making a move on Prius Killer ahead. Now Ludacris may have that advantage when it comes to grip, but it did not work out well. Shredder ended up out-accelerating Ludacris out of the hairpin this time, and I believe that Shredder has the speed in that car. He should be able to run down those 2 ahead real quickly. But right now, the field is not even close to being spread out. Your leader at the moment is LuckyVII. He is absolutely pulling on the rest of the field, although Scored Buffalo has gotten by Bryant. The gap at the front is 2.5 seconds right now in Lucky's favor. All right, and Ludacris Speed runs right behind Shredder. Ludacris looking to the outside. Shredder is going to defend. Now Ludacris goes to the inside. Side by side ahead in the 130R. Shredder on the wide, he runs over the curves, it sits the car a little bit sideways. Ludacris has no such issue, but as they go into the chicanes, Shredder has the line of choice on entry, and you can't really do a crossover because of how wide these cars are. So for the moment, Shredder holds on to 10th, Ludacris Speed holds on to 11th, and now behind Ludacris Speed, here comes another Chevrolet. That's RZX, who wants to try and get a run. Ludacris has the draft off of the BMW. He now pulls to the inside of the BMW, side by side between the Chevrolet and the BMW. And this time, Shredder goes way wide. Ludacris is having a little bit of trouble capitalizing on it. He doesn't quite pull ahead of Shredder as they come out of the corner. Now he does on the run down to turn 2. Now RZX is going to follow suit. RZX will make it side by side with SRD Shredder. He'll now move up into the 11th position. So both of the Chevrolets who have had incidents in the first 2 laps are on the move back up through the grid. It seems to me that advantage that was given to the Chevrolet for extra grip has been a significant benefit as it stands. Farther up the grid, Mabey Racing is running in 7th position, the second highest of all the BMWs on track right now. Runs right behind Rockmorrow and TNR Horizon, a pair of Bentleys here, as they are accelerating down into the hairpin. You can see Rockmorrow runs right behind TNR Horizon, looking for somewhere to make a move. Mr. Sunshine is about a second or so up the grid, but has not been able to close significantly on our top 3 leaders. Speaking of our top 3 leaders, Lucky has opened up the gap on Buffalo. It is now a 4-second gap. This is somewhat what our leader, Lucky, needs in the championship fight, but he also needs Buffalo to get caught up in more fights and start hemorrhaging positions, because if it just comes out where they're finishing first and second throughout the rest of the season, Buffalo likely has enough championship points in the bag that he will be able to walk out of here and hold on to the championship lead to the end. He needs more travesty to befall Buffalo. Alright, you can see as this trio is accelerating down the straightaway, the BMWs do not seem to have the strength that we were used to seeing them have. In the fight for second, it's TNR Brian who continues to pressure, scored Buffalo, and that's probably the main reason Buffalo's not been able to close on your race leader. He still has to defend against that Chevrolet behind. Brian is going to have an absolutely tremendous run coming out of these corners, and with that, if he times it right, he should be able to get a great pull off the car ahead, get a draft, and let that close him in on the BMW on the run down to turn 1. It didn't work as much this time. This time it's the Chevy's turn to be completely sideways, but he still closes significantly on scored Buffalo. And while Bryant is throwing everything at the wall to try and make Buffalo make a mistake, it is letting Mr. Sunshine, who is third in the championship, start to close in on this. Bryant runs into the dirt just a bit there. He's going to lose a bit of time in the process. But now, well, quickly, we're going to go ahead and bring up our map at the moment and let you see a little bit farther back in the grid. Here's some interesting fights. This is near the rear of the grid. GRM Jagged, who is in that Dodge. We've not seen a Dodge in very many races this season, but the Dodge got a significant buff. It is right now behind the Lamborghini of RZM Brett, a Lambo who also got a significant buff, giving them a lot more rear end grip with wider rear tires, along with less weight. But you can see that Lamborghini goes a little bit off circuit farther ahead. He's still pulling on GRM Jagged. It seems like Jagged just has nothing he can do. And it's Porsche FL who runs dead last at the moment. TFB Matter is 14th, TMS Aspect 13th, RZX is falling back to 12th. Once again, this little mid-pack fight from about 9th to 12th is really intense. TJ has fallen to 10th, and now SRD Shredder wants to get back into this position. Last week, Shredder was in the BMW, and that seemed to be the only car that was able to make moves on more than one driver across the entire race. Shredder went from starting 13th to finishing 6th, and very nearly could have gotten the top 5 finish, honestly. But now, Shredder seems to be struggling. He is not in the top 10 at the moment, only third highest of our 3 BMW competitors right now. And right behind is RZX U5, and RZX will be gaining a draft off of both TJ's machine and Shredder's machine. So all 3 of these drivers are on top of each other. Here they come on the run down into 130R. RZX goes to the inside of the BMW. He ends up cutting the inside grass just a bit. That compromises his mid-corner line, lets Shredder power out of the corner, and they'll still stay nose to tail with about a car length between them as they head into the chicane. So, 10th, 11th, 12th all seem to be on top of each other. Shredder runs right behind TJ through the corners. We know that TJ's car is a car that has a significant advantage when it comes to straight line ability, and you can't really go side by side at many of the corners at Suzuka, partially because of how narrow the circuit is, but also partially because of how wide the GT cars are. Overtaking is incredibly difficult here. It's easier than what we were seeing last week at Laguna-Seca. TJ runs wide coming out of turn 1. He'll slide back down and cut in front of Shredder, but the gap goes immediately down. All the gap that TJ had opened up going down the straightaway is now lost just in a single corner. As they go through the S's now, RZX is back into the fray. And right now, TJ has got to be RZX's biggest fan. There's contact, and that's Mabey Racing who's gone around ahead. Mabey Racing has gotten, no, that's not Mabey, that's Prius. And Lud1cr0us Speed's been involved as well. Lud1cr0us Speed and Prius Killer both had an accident there in the S's. And now that will move TJ up into 8th, Shredder into 9th, and RZX goes back into 10th. So a lot of incredibly intense fighting. Shredder gets to the inside corner panel of TJ on the second of those 2 tight right-handers, but cannot make a move stick. TJ has more power, will outrun Shredder to the very next corner. That had a massive impact on how this is going to go, because now RZX is 10th, and the driver in 11th is someone who we really weren't even thinking of being in this position. That's going to be, I believe, DMS Aspect. So now DMS Aspect is 11th, trying to hold off against Prius, who was involved in an accident with Lud1cr0us Speed earlier. RZM Brett is back there in 13th position with Lud1cr0us Speed behind him. So a lot of fighting going on here in the midfield today, very reminiscent of what we saw a few weeks ago at Watkins Glen. And here's something interesting. Sunshine trying to flex a little bit of muscle here. He is closing in on TNR Bryant, and Bryant is losing touch with scored Buffalo. But the gap at the front, this is the largest gap we have seen Buffalo out of the lead for a long time this season. I don't think we've seen a gap this big, basically, since, well, obviously, Sebring and Bathurst. And Sebring, he had the excuse of not qualifying. So Buffalo, having fallen from second to third on that first lap, it's really hurt him. The gap between himself and your leader is absolutely gigantic at the moment. And Sunshine, meanwhile, is trying to close in on TNR Bryant. I talked to Lud1cr0us before this race, one of the two men who really keep this series going. Lud1cr0us said that he expected, even with the BOP changes, it was going to end up being a lucky scored Bryant finish. And right now, that's the way it's looking. But we're only 7 laps into a 37-lap race. Technically 6 laps into a 36-lap race, so only a sixth of the way through. We've not even seen the first round of pit stops yet, and that's the other thing. Last week at Laguna we saw that the overcut was more important than the undercut. But for every other race, the overcut's been a little bit stronger, and the king of the overcut this season has been Mr. Sunshine. Brought home a podium, a very unexpected podium, at the season opener at Bathurst with that overcut, and has nicked several other good positions off of that. If he can stay in touch with Bryant and the undercut ends up working like it did for the other racers in this season for him, we could see Sunshine ahead of Bryant in the fight for third to the end of this race. Scored Buffalo continues to run behind Lucky. The gap is at 3.6 seconds. We'll come back to that eventually, but I want to look at this fight here. TNR Horizon runs 5th at the moment. 6th is Rockmorrow, and 7th, running right behind, that was the BMW of Mabey Racing. But Horizon is starting to pull a little bit of a gap on the cars behind. As I say that, he hits the dirt, and that's going to compromise his run through 130R just a little bit. A lot of the field's really kind of fallen into single file format. And your leader is kind of in a zone of his own. Then you have 2nd through 4th kind of all on top of each other. Then 5th through 7th are all on top of each other. And then you go behind that. And from about 8th all the way back to 15th, all these drivers are right on top of each other. It is finally RZX who has actually gotten ahead. And RZX, who's gotten some podium finishes early this season, now he's going to have to hold off TJ with a higher speed car will dive to the inside. A little bit of contact, but TJ has to back out as they go around turn 1 this time. Shredder runs just a little bit behind in 10th. TJ getting pushed a little bit sideways by Shredder back there. Shredder really aggressive, trying to just get TJ make a mistake. And there was the mistake. TJ just could not keep that car under control in the corners. And we've seen that TJ's strengths has been in the straight line most of this season. But here in this track, which is more corners than straights and high downforce corners at that, TJ Sepp has just not worked out at all. This circuit's a lot closer to Laguna than Watkins Glen or Road America, and now he has about he's leading a pack of about a half dozen cars right now because RZX and Shredder are now pulling away. Prius Killer trying to make something happen. Brett is fighting with Lud1cr0us still for the 11th position as TJ just barely holds on to a position in the top 10 spots right now. Buffalo, his gap is now 4.3 seconds, so at the moment Buffalo is not closing on Lucky. TMS Aspect is now in 14th position. I'm really interested to see what Prius Killer can do. Prius was another one of the drivers involved in this really long fight that included TJ and Lud1cr0us throughout most of the Watkins Glen race. Lud1cr0us runs right behind. Lud1cr0us involved in 2 different incidents in the first 3 laps that has pushed him onto the circuit. And while I believe Lud1cr0us thinks he should probably be top 7, he is buried in 11th right now and still has to make a lot of overtakes. Here comes that Chevrolet on the outside. Drag race, but as longer the straight goes on, Prius has the slight advantage. Under braking though, Lud1cr0us with a lot of confidence in the extra grip in the car is going to make the overtake stick on the outside. So now Lud1cr0us moves up into the 11th position here, and it is Brett's turn to try and do something about Prius. And now this fight that we saw at Watkins Glen, TJ in a Aston and Lud1cr0us in the Chevrolet, America versus Britain. Although both these drivers are American, their cars are not both American. TJ in a car that is a rocket ship in a straight line, and Lud1cr0us, a car that has gone from being very strong in handling to now an absolute handling monster. Another thing to keep an eye on here is going to be this fight, 5th, 6th, and 7th. But Mabey Racing is falling off from Rockmorrow as Rock continues to pressure TNR Horizon just ahead. And between Rock and TNR Horizon, it's going to be really difficult because those are the same kinds of cars. Both Bentleys. So it's going to be really hard for either to get an advantage over the other. You see this time here, Rock has a run. He's got a draft off the vehicle ahead, but Horizon, I think, has a low enough downforce level that it's able to compromise anything. I think Rock closes a bit here in the straight. And under braking, he gets right there underneath him. Oh, Rock looks to the outside, but the car is all squirrely. And no, those are not the same cars. I was wrong. Horizon is in the Aston, and Rock is in the Bentley. Now, these vehicles do have similar strengths, but they are not the exact same, so I was wrong there. And Horizon sideways as they dive into turn 1, with Rockmorrow falling just behind. Again, though, we look at this fight for 10th position. TJ holds station over Lud1cr0us speed. Shredder runs in 9th and is just trying to do everything he can to stay ahead of these other cars. Oh, Brett runs a little bit wide into the dirt farther back. You can really see how much TJ is struggling to keep that vehicle under him as they go through the S's here. You can see already tire wear for TJ is at the 35% mark, and he goes into the dirt. Oh, is he into the dirt? And Lud1cr0us is going to get by, and RZM Brett is going to try and sail by on the outside. And TJ now falls into 10th position. There's just not enough downforce on the car in the front or the rear. He's got great straight line speed, but no downforce to keep the car on the track in the corners. All right, real quickly, I want to go ahead and look at the tire wear of our leaders. 40 and 41% for Lucky at the head of the field with 63% left in the tank. For second place is Scored Buffalo. He's got 37% and 63% left in the tank. So Scored is way better off on tires still than Lucky, a similar scenario that we saw last week at Laguna Seca. Third is TNR Bryant in the Chevrolet, 37%. So Bryant is actually on Buffalo's level when it comes to tire wear right now. Mr. Sunshine, who runs in fourth, he's got the same amount of fuel, 35% tire wear. So everyone behind Lucky right now is better than him on tire life. Fifth place is a long way back and pretty much out of contention for the win of this race. And Horizon, 41.8% tire wear. Sixth place, Rockmorrow, he is at 43 and 44% tire wear, and Mabey Racing, who is in 7th in this fight, is ranked with 36% tire wear. So the BMWs have a significant advantage over the rest of the field, either equal or have a significant advantage over the rest of the field right now in tire life. It seems like the Aston Martins and the Bentleys have a significant tire life disadvantage. It's been there since the start of the season, but now with almost everything else being buffed and the BMW already ahead of them, I think as these stints go on, we are going to see some massive weakness from Bentleys and Aston Martin machines. And that could be bad news for Lucky. The best news for Lucky right now, though, is that he is running in clean air. There is nobody around him, and their field is a long ways away from being in a position where they could catch him and try to give him headaches for putting out dirty air. But he can look behind him in some of these straightaways, and he can see Scored Buffalo coming behind. And if Lucky overtaxes these tires, it could end up being very, very destructive for him. Buffalo not only won, he already had the lead last week at Laguna Seca, but the overcut pushed Lucky from being in a hopeful position to completely out of the contention. We're not seeing quite the same scenario here. Right now, Buffalo is nearly 5 seconds out of Lucky at the moment, and the top two are in a position all on their own compared to the rest of the grid. Meanwhile, once again, we want to look at this fight. 5th, 6th, and 7th. They're all still right on top of each other. Mabey's the more distant one out of the group as she watches Rockmorrow and TNR Horizon going at it. Again, BMW, they have better tire wear, and even with all this aero wash from this duo ahead, Her tire life is significantly better than Horizon and Rock. The longer these two continue to fight, the better and better off Mabey Racing is going to be. I think another top 5 finish is absolutely in the cards for Mabey Racing here. And mind you, at one point this season, Mabey Racing as high as 3rd in the championship, fallen a little bit since, as a few other drivers who were significantly stronger showed up to a few more races. But coming home in a top 5 position today would really lock Mabey in as a outside championship contender. That would just come down to a scored Buffalo and LuckyVII end up missing some races today. Rock very nearly hit the inside bundle of tires there. I want to talk about close. RZX runs all by himself in 8th position. No one is in range with him. Shredder has gotten into 9th. Oh, wow, big sideways moment for that Lamborghini 11th. But Ludicrous Speed is now running down the BMW of SRD Shredder. This is the first time this season that we've seen this, where Chevrolet is running down a BMW on pace. And this could end up being very problematic. Again, the BMW, I expect, has a way better handling ability on entry and mid-corner. The Chevy, especially with their new buff, will be significantly faster on the exit of the corner and slightly faster into the corner as well, as we saw Ludicrous make that big, bold overtake on the outside going into 1 earlier. So right now, both of these cars handling monsters. I'm going to be very interested to see which one's better. Typically, Shredder likes to run lower down for setups and setups that let him run really fast in a straight line. Ludicrous seems to be running in a similar kind of setup. I think despite these two being radically different cars with radically different aerodynamic profiles, their strengths and weaknesses are almost a perfect match for each other right now. Our top 4 have all opened up the gap. There are at least 2 and a quarter second gaps between everyone in the top 4 positions. 5th, 6th, and 7th are all starting to spread out amongst themselves as well. The real fight is 9th on back to about 13th position. 14th is Matter all by himself, and then GRM Jagged and Porsche FL running by himself. DMS Aspect has already dropped out of the race. Rough news for them. Mind you, I believe those drivers in dead last, GRM Jagged and Porsche, they've already made their first stop of the day. They're about half a lap down compared to our race leader right now, so I don't think our leader is going to catch them unless that duo has to make another stop in today's event. Ludicrous gets right behind Shredder. This is the closest they've been, the fight for the 9th position. I guarantee you that Ludicrous feels that he should be higher up. He looks to the outside as they head into the final chicane. Again, really tight chicane. You can't do a crossover here. The cars are just too bloody wide. But Ludicrous follows Shredder, and he's going to get a big toe from the BMW. The BMW punches such a massive hole in the air. You can see the Chevrolet suck right up behind. A massive straight line advance for the Chevrolet. This is going to be a no contest run. Side by side in the corner, Shredder is going to hold it around the outside. And actually, with that slight amount of banking, the fight's not over. Shredder holds on to the position of 9th, and Ludicrous runs right behind. So Ludicrous seems to be in a car that has a good straight line speed advantage over Shredder, and Shredder is in a car that is able to run side by side at least through turn 1 and use the banking to help. But you saw that rear of that car get really sideways there through the S's. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe Shredder is overall a little bit weaker than Ludicrous Speed at the moment. Shredder has one advantage, though, that is track position, and can utilize that to compromise Ludicrous's run from corner after corner after corner after corner. But this track is not all corners. There's going to be 2.5 long straights here, and they're going to come up to one of them here shortly. Shredder really sideways as they come out of that second right-hander, and now diving down into the hairpin. And if these two continue to hold each other up while fighting, it will bring the Lamborghini of RZM Brett back into the fray. Out of the hairpin, Shredder has position. Ludicrous follows right behind. Ludicrous in a straight line was able to run down Shredder, but now he's going to be aerodynamically compromised and has to constantly be leaning on those front tires and on the wheels. He's still closing, though. He gets down to within about 30 feet of Shredder as they get into the braking, closes even more as they go through 130, as they go through Spoon here, and now they come out. It's going to be the straightaway down to 130R. Oh, Ludicrous hit the dirt there and got the car really sideways. That's going to cause him to lose a chunk of time against Shredder, and here comes RZM Brett, as Brett in the Lamborghini is now going to try and come around the outside. The Lamborghini has a lot of extra grip as well, and the car is a little bit lighter than what it was earlier. Side by side as they go into 130R. Brett can't hold it, though. That car washes out wide. He's going to fall back in the line, 11th for the moment. At the front, scored Buffalo is starting to close the gap down on Lucky. Is now down to 3.3 seconds, but Lucky still has overall a comfortable lead over second position. This fight here is probably our most active fight right now. Ludicrous has a nice wide line as they come onto the front straightaway. Brett Brett gets right behind. He's got the draft. He looks to the inside, but I think Lud1cr0us is set up for just a little bit better straight line speed at the end of the straight, a little bit better top speed at the end of the straight, that is, and he'll use that to stay ahead of Brett. Brett can't even get alongside the Chevrolet as they go into turn 1, but as they come out of turn 1, the run down turn 2, Brett's faster. I think the Lamborghini of Brett has a way better acceleration, but Lud1cr0us has really nice grip, and Lud1cr0us is not really utilizing the grip on the exit of the corner as much as he is the entry. With the wider tires, he is diving deeper into the corners, he's carrying a lot more speed into the corners, and bleeding off in a much more controlled manner. That's very possible to do with wider tires. Typically, when you hear of wider tires, you think, oh yeah, cool, I can get onto the throttle earlier coming out of the corner. But Lud1cr0us is saying, I can be a lot more aggressive on the rubber going into the corner. The problem, though, is like what you just saw there, you can end up overdoing it and end up shooting yourself wide. Lud1cr0us just lost a huge chunk of time. He's going to fall out of contention, and there's been an accident potentially behind. Prius Killer got into by TJ. You got him, saw him got sideways there. They're back straight now, but those two had a big moment as they went under the bridge. Prius putting the power down and trying to accelerate away from TJ now. But what I want to see, what I'm interested in, is going to be, when does this man pit? His tire life is in 50s at the front. So we know that this race, just like Laguna-Seca, is going to be tire limited, not fuel limited here. He is at 51 and 52% on the front rubber. But for our leader, LuckyVII, he is at 58 and 60% on the front rubber. And in second position, Scored Buffalo, who is starting to close in, he's at 54 and 54%. So Scored Buffalo is starting to chew through his rubber a little bit faster than what we're used to. But it's working because he still has a tire life advantage over Lucky, and he is closing the gap down. We may see another fight for a lead between Lucky and Scored again shortly here. TNR Brian has completely fallen off the time to the top 2. He had a great start. He seemed to be really good early on. But as the front tires are fading away on him, he now is at a position where he has slightly worse tires than the Porsche behind him of Mr. Sunshine. I think once the drivers make their pit stops, Bryant will likely have an advantage over Sunshine that will likely last until nearly the end of the race. But Sunshine's being a lot better, a lot more conservative with his tires, and that's going to help him significantly. TNR Horizon continues to run 5th. Rockmorrow is 6th. As we look at TNR Horizon, he is at 61 and 62% tire wear, and Rockmorrow, who runs right behind him, is at 64 and 65. So Rock, running all these laps behind Horizon, is now starting to deal with the fall-off from running in someone else's dirty air. And Mabey Racing, the second highest of the BMWs, 54%. She also is dealing with the excessive tire fall-off from running in dirty air from someone else. RZX has spent a large chunk of this day. He fell off the circuit earlier, but he has run a large chunk of this race in clean air. But that is going to turn to a problem. His tires are at 56% live, and he is starting to catch this trio ahead. RZX is faster than that trio, but once he gets into a point where he can start getting draft off of Mabey Racing in the straights, he's going to be hurting, because then he'll start dealing with the dirty air she's leaving off in the corners. And SRD Shredder, one of the drivers who struggle more with tire life than anyone else in the field, he is running at 63% tires right now. Lud1cr0us has fallen off the back of him, so he doesn't have to worry about defense right now, but Shredder is in some of the worst positions when it comes to tire life of all the BMWs on the field. 10th place, last of our top 10 drivers, Lud1cr0us speed, has just now topped over the 60% wear on tire life. Lud1cr0us could be in a position where, while he is still more limited on tires, he could try and go for a massive overcut instead. Stay out as long as he wants on this set of rubber and try and make something happen of it. Is that a good idea? It's up in the air. Laguna-Seca, a circuit that's similar, not directly similar, but similar enough in the case that's a very tire life focused circuit. We saw the overcut work there. Maybe Lud1cr0us speed can make it work. In 11th position, we have RZM Brett, and Brett is running with 60% tire wear in the fronts as well. So Brett is comparative to Lud1cr0us speed when it comes to tire life. Now it's a big drop off. Prius Killer is running back here with 51 and 53% tire life. Prius is honestly in a position, I think, that while he is still tire life limited, he's going to be comparable to Lud1cr0us. He could run extremely long on this set of rubber. 13th position is TTJ111. He has fallen off the back of the field by a significant amount, 60% in the front, 60% in the rear. So that really goes to show you that TJ is running an ultra low downforce setup. He's sliding the rear tires. He's the only driver we have on the entire grid right now whose rear tires have actually fallen off more than the fronts. 14th position is TFB Matter. He is running all by himself, 60% tire wear. air, pretty comparable, if not a little bit better than everyone ahead, but he has been running in pretty much clean air most of the day. He's just too slow to do anything. Then you have these drivers who have, no, Porsche, I'm wrong, Porsche has not made a pit stop already. So Porsche is still on the same set of tires he started with, 68%, and this might mean that Porsche is in a position they'll go a lap down. And GRM Jagged, who is last of everyone on track, 70% tire wear in the front. This does not have enough front downforce, and it's going to be very, very rough for him as they get down to it here. Oh, so I missed this, but Sunshine pitted this last lap. So here we are, Sunshine, master of the undercut. This is the good news. He's got this pit stop done early, and he's better tires. The bad news is that he's right behind a trio of drivers, Shredder, Lud1cr0us, and RZM Brett. Now, the Porsche has more straight line speed. He'll use that to get right there behind Brett and tow him in the straightaway. But here's the thing. Now, this tire advantage that Sunshine has is going to be a limited time tire advantage. And the more and more time he spends running behind other drivers on track, like RZM Brett, the more and more it's going to hinder his ability to do anything here. I'm really interested to see if anyone or when anyone in our top 3 positions will make their stop. But Sunshine, this strategy got him great results back at Bathurst. Horrible results, though, at Laguna Seca. I'm really curious to see what he can do here, because right now he is caught in the arrow wash of RZM Brett and is not closing on Brett at a high enough rate to really do anything. Now we see Rockmorrow, who is in that fight for 5th, 6th, and 7th. He has also gone ahead and made a stop now. So Rock is going to end up dropping into clean air. He's not going to be the only one, though. Another driver has gone ahead and pitted as well. That is Prius Killer, so that means TJ will now go into clean air now for the moment. At the front, Lucky continues to lead without too much issue, but Scored Buffalo is closer now than he's been for a long time. The gap is now down to 2.4 seconds. Lucky seems to have a significant advantage early in the run, especially with this clean air. But as this run has gone on, Lucky's tires are fading away. And the bigger problem is that if you want to make it halfway through this race, you need to pit at around lap 18, lap 19. And Lucky, I don't know if he's going to be able to make it. It's going to be close. But he is tire life limited. Scored Buffalo, even if he pits at the same time as Lucky, Scored will have the exact same advantage over Lucky. In fact, it might be even better because Scored likely won't have to worry about running the draft of a different car. This fight for the lead is going to go down, I think, to the final stint of this race. It's not going to be done before pit stop number 1 like what we've seen in most of our earlier races today. I think this fight is going to go down to the final half. Lucky stays out a little bit longer. He is not pitting yet, I believe. Yeah, Lucky is going to stay out another lap. But as you can see, he continues to churn away at his tires. Tire life limitation is the big thing of the day today. Lucky staying ahead of Scored Buffalo. And 3rd place is TNR Bryant. 4th place is TNR Horizon. And Horizon, who had Mabey Racing behind him, Mabey is just not keeping up. Even though Horizon is dealing with tire life fall off right now, Mabey just does not have the pace to do anything. I think Mabey may be washing her own tires right now enough to kind of counter that. RZX has caught Mabey, and this is going to be where things get really frustrating, though, because if RZX can't dispose of Mabey really quickly here, he is going to be dealing with a lot of arrow wash at the very end of this tire life. Oh, did someone just lag out? Oh, Rockmorrow has lagged out! And a driver who was fighting for a top 10 position has suddenly lagged out of the event. All right, and coming into the party right now is Rockmorrow. Rock, go ahead, include your audio. You look like you were competitive out there. What happened?
Oh, I had to leave to get ready for work, so that's about it.
Oh. Well, you will still at least get 16th place points in that case, but it's a shame to see that happen.
Yeah, no, it was going really good. I was having a lot of fun. I was battling with Horizon for the longest time, and then I pit, and then pirouetted in 130R, and yeah.
All right, well, thanks for jumping in and talking with us. We'll let you go ahead and get to work. Thanks for jumping in and racing, though, today.
Bye-bye.
All right, well, here's the big thing. At the front of the field, this is where things are going to get interesting. We see more and more drivers starting to make their stop. The gap at the front is at 2.7 seconds. This is the closest it's been since about lap 3. So Buffalo continues to charge down on Lucky. Will Lucky make their stop this lap or not? We're about the halfway point of this race, and yes, here it comes. Lucky is making his stop now. So here comes Scored Buffalo. Buffalo is going to stay out one extra lap. So Buffalo wants to just give himself a little bit of advantage. So Buffalo's tire life for one lap is going to go in Lucky's favor. Lucky's going to have a significant advantage for one lap against Scored Buffalo. But after that, Scored Buffalo is going to have a significant tire advantage basically until the end of this race, and will be a tire advantage that will only continue to grow. Lucky, in theory, should be coming out into clean air, because 4th place is TNR Horizon, and Horizon has just now come into pit lane. 5th place is going to be Mabey Racing, who now inherits 4th, but I do not believe that Mabey is going to be close enough to do anything against Lucky at the moment. So Mabey Racing, the highest she has been all day today, now 4th, and at the front it is Scored Buffalo with TNR Bryant in 2nd, Lucky now in 3rd. 4th is Mabey Racing, and 5th place is now SRD Shredder, who is fighting with TNR Horizon. No, I'm wrong. Shredder is fighting with RZM Brett. I got that completely wrong. I apologize for that. Did Shredder pit? Did Shredder pit already? No, well, no, Brett hasn't. We know Brett hasn't. Did Shredder already pit? Because this is not where we anticipated these two. No, neither of these drivers have pitted, and they are fighting with incredibly worn tires, and Sunshine is on fresh rubber way faster than both of them. This has gone horribly for Sunshine, because he's way faster than everyone else on track right now, but he's losing all this time being stuck behind a Lamborghini and a BMW. He'll finally get to the inside of the Lamborghini on the run down to these two right-hand corners, but now Brett will have the advantage into them. This has gone horribly for Sunshine, and for Sunshine, who constantly focuses on doing the undercut, it's all gone wrong, because Shredder now goes wide, Brett dives to the inside. Again, there's no room for Sunshine to get by. Now Brett's all sideways and twisted up as they come down into the hairpin. Brett runs wide, Shredder gets back by, Sunshine can't do anything. This is going to destroy Sunshine's race. This is it. Sunshine's not going to have any chance at a podium because he's trapped in well, not lap traffic, but other cars for so long today. And Scored Buffalo, is he making his stop now? The answer is going to be yes. Buffalo went one lap longer to make his stop. Here comes TNR Bryant. Now Bryant is going to stay out a little bit longer. Bryant will be our 3rd different lap leader in today's event. But the interesting thing is going to be Scored Buffalo versus LuckyVII. But then you also have this fight here. Brett, Shredder, Sunshine, they're all stuck on top of each other, and Sunshine can't really utilize this extra speed of the Porsche to get by these drivers ahead. All right, here it comes, the fight for the top position eventually. Buffalo still coming down pit lane. Lucky is going to blitz by. The gap at the front is at 2.8, 2.9, 3.1, 3.2 seconds. Lucky has actually opened the gap against Buffalo between the in-lap and out-lap. Buffalo's going to have to get his tires up and temperature quickly. Lucky has a tire advantage, but that's going to go away now, and Buffalo will have the tire life advantage to the end of the race, especially because Lucky pitted a lap earlier. That means that he'll be dealing with the fall off of his rubber faster than Scored Buffalo will. And this is, again, we anticipate will be the fight to win the victory of this race. 5th place is TNR Horizon. 6th place is TJ. And TJ, despite running in a car that has absolutely horrible tire life, has been absolutely churning the rubber up. You see, he's down to 9% in fuel, 80% in rear tires, but he is still out there and has gotten him up into 6th position right now, and he's actually running in relatively clean air. There is TNR Horizon ahead of him, but Horizon has already made a stop and is expected to just kind of scoot away from TJ. This could end up being a slightly positive windfall for TJ, extending all these laps on track, extending this first stint as long as he can. This means that TJ will have a significant tire advantage over the rest of the field towards the end of the race. And considering that he's been churning up the tires because he's running these ultra low downforce setups, he's going to need that, and boy, is he going to need that desperately. At the front of the field, we now see that Lucky has only a 3-second lead over Scored Buffalo. I'm interested to see if Buffalo can close that down, because he closed down the gap of about 5 seconds down to about 2.5 in the first stint when Buffalo was in a worse scenario. The gap's a little bit wider now, but Buffalo has more things working in his favor as they'll come to the end. So definitely we're going to keep an eye on that fight for a win to the end of this race here. RZX is actually ahead of Mabey Racing. I did not anticipate to see that happening, but RZX has gotten back ahead of Mabey Racing after everything. So RZX, after going off circuit on at least 2 separate occasions, has actually moved back up quite a bit. And it's a 1.1 second gap between RZX and TJ, but I think RZX is anticipating that TJ is going to pit within a lap or so. If not this lap, he'll pit next lap for sure. and that will make sure that RZX will be in relatively clean air to the end of this race. Here comes the Chevrolet, pulls up right behind TJ, and there you see TJ making that hard turn in. Mabey Racing about 1.2 seconds out from behind this Chevrolet at the moment. So after all that fighting was done, in the end, Ludicrous Speed has actually opened up a massive gap over Shredder, and Shredder is still stuck fighting with RZM Brett. This duo, I thought that maybe one of them would end up pulling away from the other after they made their stops, so that has not been the case. Shredder accelerating. Brett has a higher top-end speed as they come down into turn 1. Brett inside, Shredder outside. Will Shredder do to Brett what Ludicrous did to him earlier? Well, it helped that Brett got sideways, but yes, Shredder carries way more speed into turn 1, carries the momentum all the way through the corner, and will hold on to 9th position. It's one of the reasons I love Suzuka. You can be almost completely behind somebody and still make an overtake around the outside in turn 1 here. It's a very difficult thing to do, but Shredder is making it work with that higher downforce setup right now. And back there in 11th is Prius Killer and TJ, who went so long on his tires. He is now 8 seconds behind Prius, but TJ now has a significant tire life advantage and clean air to the end of this race. That will be very interesting to see how it goes on throughout the end of this. The gap at the front has closed down and is now down to just 2 seconds. And we could be looking at a scenario where an overtake may come in the last 5 or so laps here. Lucky needs to be careful because his tires are going to fall off faster than Buffalo's. A massive swing at BOP was taken today. It's had a small knock-on effect on this fight at the front. Oh, did someone else just drop out? And that is GRM Jagged, who has now dropped out. So we are now down to just 14 drivers. Most of the fights have kind of spread out outside of Brett and Shredder here as this duo continues to literally door each other as they come out of 130R. Shredder has more speed coming out of the corner. He'll have the inside line of choice going into the chicane. So the fight for 9th and 10th position right now. This is great news for Ludicrous Speed, who can just kind of focus on his own. I think Ludicrous, though, is only going to be able to come home in 8th unless something goes wrong for maybe RZX or TNR Horizon here. Brett gets right to the inside of Shredder as they dive into turn 1 and is actually going to hold it. They're still side-by-side drag racing at turn 2, but Shredder again has the line of choice and will use that to deny any chance for the Lamborghini to get him. The Lambo, even these really short straights, outruns the BMW into the corner. The initial acceleration out of the corner for that Lamborghini is absolutely massive, but Shredder is just way smoother all the way through the corners. And now we see Brett drops 2 tires into the dirt and is going to fall way off the back of Shredder now. That's going to settle that fight for just a little bit here. Shredder, though, is one of those drivers who will have to be careful and watch his tires to the end of this race. This fight may not be over yet. So potentially bad news for your race leader, Lucky. He is about to come up on lap traffic, happening way sooner than anticipated. That is Porsche FL, who is running in the 14th position. Last of everyone still running on track right now. And for Lucky, he is going to catch Porsche in the S's, more than likely, and this could end up being horrendous for Lucky. He's going to be made slower, but also this aero wash is going to cause him to be way worse when it comes to saving his tires. Scored Buffalo is about 2.5 seconds, a little less than 2.5 seconds out. We've seen that gap fluctuating from about 1.8 to 2.6 seconds over the last 2 laps here. Again, there's not really, this circuit is so narrow, there's not really anywhere for Porsche FL to go that will let Lucky scoot by. The only good news is that Buffalo is about 2 seconds behind right now, so if Porsche lets Lucky by, Porsche might end up being in a position where he will catch... Oh my goodness, Porsche is going to actually slide off there, and that will be how our leaders get by. We did see Lucky back off just a bit there, and the gap closed a small amount, but not by a massive margin, as we continue to watch this fight for second here. All right, back to the fight for 9th and 10th as RZM Brett falls behind Shredder once again. Brett is a monster in the straightaways and is a monster coming out of corners. But Shredder, overall, I think his car is good enough, and his setup, despite being very rough on tire life, is good enough to keep him ahead for now. But watching the rubber fall off to the end is going to be incredibly important here. The other thing that's going to be incredibly important, where is Mr. Sunshine? All that time spent in dirty air. He is now in clean air, but he is 7 seconds behind Bryant. There's just no way for Sunshine to catch Bryant. I think Sunshine may have had a potentially decent idea, but caught up in so much traffic, there's no way he's going to be able to make anything happen today. And this is RZX, who can see TNR Horizon ahead. Brett trying to close back in on Shredder. He gets right behind through Spoon. Shredder, though, still has the advantage. Staying ahead of the Lamborghini. And here's the big thing. While the BOP change did not technically affect our Astons, Bentleys, or BMWs, what we have seen happen is it put a Chevrolet in a position where it held up a BMW, and that fight, that potential fight for a lead, has been pushed off way longer. My goodness, what kind of crazy move. Brett really threw it up in there going into 130R completely sideways. That was probably one of the highest risk moves I've seen, and if these two continue to fight, they will bring Prius Killer into the fray. Despite the fact that Prius is definitely slower than both of these drivers, he's going to be there because this duo continues to just chunk time away from each other. Again, Brett has the advantage in a straight line. Shredder comes down low, will try and deny Brett the ideal line. Brett's completed the pass on Shredder as they come into turn 1. Shredder actually backs off early. Brett takes a wide line. Shredder takes the inside line. Side by side as they come out. Contact Shredder sideways. Brett has the position now. It's taken some very, very rough moves, to say the least. Moves that I think in real life racing wouldn't be accepted, but here, it's fine. It's just good racing. And now Brett finally is ahead of SRD Shredder, but this is the part of the circuit where that BMW is going to be better. Buffalo has closed the gap down to 1.8 seconds at the moment. Again, though, in the straightaways, we know that Lucky can pull away. Lucky's biggest problem, though, is going to be tire life to the end of the race. He had tires that were wearing off worse than Buffalo's, and he pitted a lap later than Buffalo. A lap earlier than Buffalo. That lap earlier meant that for one lap, Lucky had a massive advantage over that BMW in tire life, but the advantage immediately swept back over the BMW. And at Suzuka, a circuit where tire fall-off is incredibly important, the advantage now goes in the favor of the BMW in second. Brett runs ahead of Shredder at the moment, and the gap is now starting to open up. 9/10 as they come through the Spoon corners now. I think Brett is now going to be ahead of Shredder for good, even if Shredder is faster over the course of a lap. I don't think there's any way he'll get by Brett unless Brett deals with a massive issue with tire life. As we look at Brett's tire life, 19 and 20%. Shredder, we are anticipating his tire life will be worse, 21 and 22%. It's worse, but not by a significant amount. Biggest problem for Shredder is that he's now going to be dealing with dirty air to the end of this. The gap at the front, this is the closest it's been all race long. 1 second. So our fight for the win, an overall championship, is coming down to it. Lucky needs to win. Even if it's just a handful of points, he needs everything he can to start closing the gap down on Buffalo. The BOP change did not affect who was at the front dominating and walking away with this win. It would appear it's going to be Lucky versus Scored. And I do think Scored is significantly faster than Lucky. I do think that the rate it is going, Scored is going to have a big enough advantage. He will nip Lucky with about 5 laps to go. The big question, of course, is going to be, if that happens, the question is just going to be, can Lucky buck that at a later circuit on the schedule? Lucky won 2 of the first 4 races he's been at, and he has finished second in the other 2. So Lucky's in-race finishing position has not been worse than second all season long. Scored has had a worse finish of 4th. The difference, and then has also had a DNF at Road America. But Scored made up all those points the very next week at Lud1cr0us, Lucky's attempts to make up for points from missing the first race at Watkins Glen, all of them were denied. So basically, when it all comes down to it, the gap between this duo is nearly a full race worth of points in Buffalo's favor. Lucky needs to chip that away, and he needs bad luck to happen to the BMW up front. One way or another, though, I will say that the change in BOP, even if it's not what I would have done, has absolutely been a move for the better when it comes to the racing outside of our top two. Now, I'm personally in the position that the front of the field is where all the BOP should be focused on. The rest of the field just kind of needs to deal with it. Gap's now down to sub 1 second. Here's an interesting other fight that may be forming here. RZX has definitely caught TNR Horizon. We could see two Chevrolets in the top 5 positions, which would be a very interesting development. Gap's at about 1.1 seconds. RZX, 30% tire wear on the front, but he's just gone to the dirt farther back there. It's going to hurt him. TNR Horizon, 33%. All right, but I really want to focus on our leaders. Scored Buffalo, 27% tire life. LuckyVII, who is leading, is in the 33s. Again, for now, realistically, with the way that Forza works, you don't feel the tire fall off until roughly you get to about the 65 to 83% range. It varies from the car and the setup. Typically, the number is about 75 to 82. It can happen around the 65 mark, but typically it would be about 75. So we're still several laps away from that. Buffalo right now, I think he may just be hitting back behind Lucky, trying to conserve his tires and make sure he's not chunking his tires apart right in the aero wash of the leading Bentley. But if Lucky makes a big mistake, he will launch. I have no doubt about that. So TJ has now dropped out of the event. So TFB Matter, who runs 12th, is your last of your lead lap drivers and last of all the drivers running on track. And at the rate it is going, he is going to go a lap down in the next few laps here. This has been a horrible run this last few weeks for Matter. He's kept his nose clean. He just has no speed whatsoever compared to the rest of the field. Prius is a full 54 seconds up the road, and Prius is trying to fight with SRD Shredder for 10th. Shredder, who has completely fallen off of the Lamborghini of Brett, who is in 9th. Ludacris is kind of running all by himself in 8th. While Brett might be able to run Ludacris down, I don't think that Brett has the ability to catch and overtake Ludacris before this race is over. Mabey Racing is in 7th position. Earlier it looked like she could fight for a top 5, but that's kind of fallen apart. The pace has just not quite been there, but she is still our second highest BMW driver. A good result thus far. RZX has actually fallen off significantly from TNR Horizon over the last few laps. After dropping tires into the dirt earlier, I think RZX may have solidified just a 6th place position as long as he doesn't go off again. TNR Horizon is 5th, and I'm going to be 100% honest, being 9 seconds, nearly 10 seconds out from Mr. Sunshine, there's no way he's able to make anything else happen. Sunshine is about 9.5 seconds behind TNR Bryant. TNR Bryant is 13 seconds behind Scored Buffalo, and the fight to the end of this race is going to be this one here. Scored Buffalo versus LuckyVII. We saw this dual fight at Watkins Glen, but that fight was decided within the first 15 laps, pretty much within the first 11 laps of that race. We saw these two fighting at Road America. That fight was decided by Scored Buffalo having to leave and was not able to stick around to the end of the race, so that one went in Lucky's favor. The fight at Lud1cr0us, we saw that Lucky held on up for about 15 laps until finally Scored Buffalo got by. Now we're here at Suzuka. It's going the other way. Scored Buffalo. He is bringing the fight up to Lucky, and instead of it being settled in the first 15 or so laps of this race, this fight is going to be settled within the last 10 laps. Buffalo runs within 9/10 of a second of LuckyVII. Lucky has a track position advantage. Buffalo has a tire life advantage. That is going to, and Lucky is a little bit slower overall. They're coming up on traffic. This will be the second time today that the field has come up on traffic. Or our leaders have caught up on traffic, that is. Gap's now open to about 1.2 seconds. We see that Lucky is in a car that is way faster in a straight line. So on the back straight and the front straight, Lucky opens the gap typically a bit. Matter right in front of Lucky now as they go into the final chicanes. This is really going to compromise Lucky's run out of the corner. It's now down to 8/10. But Scored Buffalo is now going to be caught behind TFB Matter. They'll have the draft off of Matter's machine, but I don't think he's going to be able to overtake Lucky going into overtake Matter going into turn 1. I could be wrong. I am wrong. Matter holds an outside line and Scored gets right by. Gap's now back to 1 second exactly. We're at 9 laps to go at the moment. Sideways moment from Lucky there through the S's. You can see he's really struggling to keep the tires in the nose and the rear underneath that car, and Buffalo is having no such issues. Four tenths is the closest it's been for a while, but Buffalo is slow, getting out of that second right-hander, and Lucky now holds the position still on the run down to the hairpin. Again, tire life is going to be incredibly important, and I am a little bit interested to see if Lucky is going to be able to keep his tires under him well enough to properly make it to the end of this race as well, because he is absolutely chewing this rubber through. Again, that first entire stint, Lucky was in clean air, and he's been in clean air this stint as well. But Lucky, basically, he ran 1 lap under yellow, and then 17 laps under full course racing. Well, 18 laps under, about 17 laps under full course racing. He now has to do about 19 laps under green flag conditions. Buffalo's a little bit closer. 18 laps on this set, and then 18 laps plus 1 caution lap on the first set. As long as we don't have a yellow flag, yeah, we are going to stay green to the end. Oh, Buffalo, my goodness, that was a big hiccup. That is the first time we've seen Buffalo really have a mistake, basically all day today, outside of the initial start where we know he's weak. Prius Killer has now gotten by SRD Shredder farther back here. So the BMWs, they've not been nerfed, but everybody else is significantly faster. And Shredder, who was fighting for easy top 10 positions earlier, is actually fading away as the event goes on. Five tenths, now 6 tenths of a second. Prius is in a car that should be able to accelerate Shredder without too much of an issue in a straight line. We continue to watch at the front. Buffalo Rain and Lucky's dirty air is definitely going to cause his tires to chew away a little bit faster. He's at 43%. Lucky, who runs right ahead of him, though, is at 50%. So the gap is about 7% difference when it comes to the tire life. That's about 2 laps worth of running, about 1 to 2 laps worth of running. So what we're going to do is we're going to go silent for a lap and right on board with Lucky for a flying lap here around Suzuka, so you can get an idea of what a proper flying lap is like around probably the greatest racetrack in the nation of Japan. Full lap quietly on board. All right, so we continue to watch the laps count down here at Suzuka. Lucky has led almost every lap except 2 under green flag stops. Our second place and our third place drivers, who currently is Buffalo and TNR and Bryant, both also led laps. We are down to the last 6 laps of the event. Buffalo has been running behind Lucky this entire time. Has not been able to get more than 0.4 of a second from this driver here. We started out with 17 drivers, but we are down now to just 12. Only 11 of them on the lead lap, and Shredder, last of the field on the lead lap. I hate to say it, this is not meant to be a bash against Shredder, but if you want proof that this BOP has really disadvantaged the BMW, even though there's been nothing taken against the BMW, it has really disadvantaged the BMW. You can see that Shredder completely off pace. Usually our second or third best BMW driver, way at the back of the lead lap group, and Mabey Racing, similar scenario, has been finding other cars that has just been able to pull away, although in Mabey's case, though, she has been stuck in traffic for a while. TNR Horizon did eventually get passed by RZX, so RZX is going to bring this Chevrolet home in 5th position. Mr. Sunshine runs 4th, and I'm really interested to see if Sunshine is going to have the tire life to make it to the end. He is in the 60% range right now when it comes to tire life. He has a significant gap over our next place driver at the moment. Second. Time intervals. Why was that set to lap times? That's stupid. I'm really interested to see if Sunshine can make it to the end on his rubber, though. And then again, at the front, Buffalo's actually fallen off from Lucky just a little bit. But Lucky needs to preserve his tires. His tires are going to be in a horrible position near the end of this race. And he pitted a lap earlier than Buffalo, and Buffalo's not having nearly the same level of issues when it comes to his rubber. So the focuses are going to be on 2nd and 4th position. 4th, Sunshine, is 8.8 seconds ahead of RZX. 2nd is Buffalo, who is 1.1 second out from LuckyVII. There's really no other active fights on the track right now. .2 seconds is the gap. But again, we look at the front. Lucky, 61 and 63% tire life with 5 laps to go. It'll be 4 laps to go at the line. And second, scored Buffalo with 55%. Buffalo has a tire advantage. But I'm going to be honest, he needs to start pushing it. He really needs to start pressing this advantage and really gain under Lucky, force Lucky to overdrive his rubber quickly. Because as it is right now, there is a possibility that I think what Scored's trying to do is he's just trying to stay this distance behind Lucky so he doesn't deal with the aero wash from Lucky. He got right behind Lucky once before. We saw him get there. Could not get alongside. I think Scored right now is in a position where he's like, look, I'd rather just run behind and just hope that Lucky has a tire failure near the end. Typically, once your tires hit about 85% wear, you'll lose grip in the tires and you won't be able to make the corners as well. I think Scored is waiting and hoping that there is a tire failure that Lucky has on the last lap or two. It's a very, very clever strategy, and I think it might work, but there's a decent likelihood that's not going to. And if Lucky is letting off, and if Lucky is slowing down, not by a massive amount, but if he's slowing down by a small amount, watching his pace, and he's artificially making Buffalo also slow himself down as well, then Buffalo's likely not going to catch Lucky if Lucky does have that tire failure, and at the same time, Lucky could also slow his pace down enough that, yeah, his lap times aren't going to be at the same pace, but he won't have the tire failure at the end because he's not over-stressing the rubber. The rest of the field from third on back are all basically locked into their positions. There is still the question of Mr. Sunshine, who pitted extremely early, ended up in the middle of traffic, spent a lot of laps in dirty air. RZX, who's in 5th, is actually starting to run Mr. Sunshine down. The gap was 8.8 seconds a lap ago. It's now 8.1 seconds. So he's closing about 0.8 seconds a lap, but at that rate, he would need 10 more laps to catch Sunshine. I'm not sure if that's going to happen. I'm not saying it won't happen, but I'm not sure it's going to happen. But as the rubber continues to get worse and worse, Sunshine is going to continue to drop time. And Sunshine is the canary in the coal mine for your leader, LuckyVII. Lucky led the most laps. He got pole position, led into turn 1 without issue, has led all but 2 laps today. Those 2 laps were led by other drivers, Scored Buffalo and TNR Bryant, under green flag stops. The question for Lucky, can he make his tires last to the end? And before that even comes about, the question is going to be, Mr. Sunshine, can he make his tires last to the end as well? RZX, who was involved in an instance earlier in the day, is absolutely charging through the field like nobody's business. And Sunshine is nearly at 70% tire wear right now. In fact, on one tire, he is at 71%. On the other, he's about 69%. Something may have happened to Prius Killer. Something may have happened to Prius Killer because Shredder has gotten by him. So a fight for 10th. The last cars on the lead lap. All of a sudden, they are back at it here. We did not expect this last moment charge, but it is happening now. Also of note, RZX is now starting to close in on Sunshine. The gap is now down to 7.5 seconds. We see Prius looking all over Shredder. This is basically an inversion of the fight we have at the front of the field. It's BMW trying to defend Bentley there. Here, it's BMW defending against Bentley here. At the front is Bentley defending against BMW. And all of a sudden, Shredder has gotten ahead of the Bentley. This could be big news for Scored Buffalo, because this might mean that the changeover may be happening now. The gap has closed back down. The gap is now down to half a second at the front. Could this be it? Has Scored? Is he going to finally go? We only have 3 laps to go. You aren't going to get another shot at this, I'm sorry to say. You need to pressure Lucky now, Scored. And for Lucky, you can't afford to let him get side by side in a corner. You have to do whatever you can. Just conserve, slow your pace, whatever. But Lucky, you've got to make sure that Buffalo does not get side by side with you through a corner. And for Scored, if you want to get this position, you have got to put all the pressure you can on Lucky now. This is your time in the BMW to chew those tires up and force Lucky to have a tire failure from overdoing his own rubber. Sunshine is actually maintaining his gap over RZX at the moment. But Lucky, what is it looking like for him when it comes to his tire life? As they are coming down to 2 laps to go here through 130R for the third to last time. You can see at the front, 71 and 73%. This is just about the time where for most drivers on average, we would see tire fall off happen. And I think it's starting to happen. But Buffalo needs to start pressing now. This fight for the win is going to come down to the last 2 laps. It is an 8/10 second gap, with Lucky easily opening the gap in a straight line, as that Bentley has a significant straight line advantage, but he is at 72 and 74% tire wear. Farther back in the grid, as we look at the back of our lead lap drivers, Prius Killer runs right behind Sunshine. Shredder has this position, and I think Shredder, even though he typically has worse tire wear than the other cars on track, I think this might work out. Prius, though, is looking to the outside, side by side for a 10th position. Prius outside, Shredder inside, and Prius is actually going to out-accelerate Shredder through the spoon corners. I did not see that coming, but Prius is going to make it stick. Prius now goes back into the 10th position, so it's not over yet for the Bentleys. But what about at the lead, where it's a slightly different scenario? It is a BMW pressuring. Buffalo runs right behind Lucky. It's down to 3/10. This is the closest it's been all race between these two since they first came off the line. On the run up into the hairpin, Buffalo hit the grass, lost a bunch of time, but it's still right behind. There are no to tell as they come out of the hairpin, and they'll still have to go through that corner one more time. For Lucky, it's all going to come down to just making his tires last to the end of the race. That's it. There's nothing else. I think Lucky has a car that still has enough acceleration. He'll have no problem, but you can see even those rear tires now are starting to queue up on him, and his fronts are in the 75 to 77 percentile range. This is going to be the worst that Lucky is ever going to feel these tires at, and he has to fight off against Scored Buffalo. This would be an incredible finish if he's able to hold off Buffalo, and likewise, if Buffalo ends up gaining this position by timing a last lap overtake after Lucky has a tire failure, it would be incredible. Either way, this is probably going to be the best fight we're going to have for a win all season long outside of Bathurst, if not maybe even better than Bathurst. If you remember back at Bathurst, Buffalo made the move for the victory on the last lap coming out of the first corner. Here they come now. White flag is in the air. Lucky has a 4:10 second advantage over Scored Buffalo as they come down the front straightaway. Using the acceleration of the Bentley, he will open the gap up to 0.5 of a second. We don't know how good Lucky's tires are going to be to the end of the race. Scored Buffalo needs to try and get alongside Lucky, because I don't think that Buffalo can count on Lucky having a tire failure. Buffalo has been faster than Lucky throughout the pace of this race, but being caught up and fighting with a Chevrolet early in the event cost him a bunch of time. Lucky drops tires into the grass just a little bit. That's not going to help, but what it is going to do is going to slow his pace and in turn slow Buffalo's pace down as well. They are nearly nose to tail. There's only about a third of a car length between the duo as they come out of the S's now. Lucky steps out wide. Buffalo is faster. Buffalo is looking. It's not wide enough to go side by side through this section of the circuit. A tenth of a second. Under braking, the gap opens up just a bit, and now Buffalo's behind the Bentley again. He looks inside. He looks outside. That Bentley is just too wide, and the BMW is also too wide. Here they come into the hairpin corner for the final time. This might be it. Buffalo has to make the move happen now. He looks to the outside. Lucky slides wide. Buffalo runs right into Lucky's rear end, and they are nose to tail as they accelerate out. Lucky starts opening the gap on Buffalo again. Lucky trying to make it 3 wins across 5 starts. That would be an incredible repertoire this season if he can make it stick. But we look at his tire life. Look at this. 81, nearly 82%, and 80% on the front. These tires are going to be absolutely horrible, and there are still about 4 corners left. Lucky accelerating away. The gap is at 3/10 of a second, and the acceleration will let Lucky open the gap up to about 4/10, maybe even 5/10 as they come down to 130R for the final time. Lucky has done everything he can. Will the tires last for the last 3 quarters? Buffalo choose a huge chunk away from the lead as they come down. Big lockup from the BMW. He looks to the outside. He can't make it stick. Lucky is going to make it through the chicane. One last corner to go. He's really struggling to keep the power down under the car, but Buffalo's lockup will seal it, and Lucky Nevin is going to make his 3rd different victory today. After taking home the pole, he will finally have the result that he has been needing, defeating Buffalo Moto E Moto on the circuit. Buffalo will come home in 2nd. 3rd place is going to be TNR Bryant, and 4th place is going to be where the other interesting fight is, because Mr. Sunshine is going to be dealing with tire failure potentially. 83.4% for the front tires for Mr. Sunshine. This is bad, but he only has 2 corners left and a 5.7 second gap over RZX. I think this is going to work. Sunshine is going to barely nurse his car home, and he will bring home a 4th place finish. Could have been a 3rd, but he will bring home a 4th place finish. And RZX, who I say would be driver of the day after being knocked off circuit twice at least, will come home with a top 5 finish. 6th place is going to be TNR Horizon. 7th place will be Mabey Racing. 8th will be RZM Brett. 9th will be Lud1cr0us Speed. And Prius Killer and Shredder are still in it to the end. But Prius has opened up the gap on Shredder just a bit. And I think Prius is going to make it stick as long as he doesn't mess up in these last 3 corners into the chicane for the final time. There's a bit of a cut there by Prius. Shredder closes right back in. Prius is really struggling as they come out of the final corner, but now it's just the acceleration down, and Prius's Bentley is fast enough. He is going to take home and round out the top 10. 11th will be Shredder, and Matter will be the only driver to not finish on the lead lap, but he will still finish 12th, which is a significant improvement over where he started. And your winner, LuckyVII. Perfect strategy, it would appear. It got risky. It got close. We saw at one point it was down to a 1/10 of a second, but he did not let Buffalo get alongside of him at any point in the race. And even if Buffalo did get alongside coming out of the corner, I think Lucky may have had the acceleration to deny him the position. But for Lucky, it's not going to be by much. But for the first time since Road America, we will see Lucky actually chip away at the championship points lead that Buffalo has. All right, gain some of our finishers into the party here. There's still a few other drivers I need to invite in. All right, here we are. Anyways, coming in the party right now. Go ahead and make sure my audio is included. Coming into the party right now, I want to start with our race winner, LuckyVII. Lucky, go ahead, include your audio. You did it. You got pole. You led all but 2 laps today, and you take home the win. What do you have to say about your run today, Lucky?
It was, pretty good. I know I had good pace here. Car accelerated really good out of the turns, and I didn't really have to deal with many curb issues, which this track is notorious for. So, all in all, was a good day.
Tell us about your tire life and strategy, because I've been watching your tire life all day, and you were probably second or third closest out of everyone when it came to making it to the end on the rubber. How in the world did you make sure your rubber didn't fail on you in the last lap?
I was getting worried, I'll be honest. I wanted to make sure I got at least halfway. This way I knew that I could still, I can make it to the race without having to worry about it. But those last 7 or so laps, I really had to push my car, so I tore up my tires a lot more than I did in the first half. So if there was another lap in that race, I would have lost to Buffalo.
Well, it was an incredible fight to the end, to say the least. All right, so you close down the championship fight a little bit, not by a lot, but a little bit. There's still more than half the season left to go. Do you think there's a chance for the championship? Do you think this will swing the momentum in your favor?
Not if Buffalo doesn't miss. He has to miss, or something has to happen where he gets like last or something.
All right, well, I appreciate your honesty. I think you've got a chance now. Maybe you've got inside of his head. We'll see. But either way, you did get
fast, and you proved it today of catching me. That had me sweating the last half of that race.
Yeah, fair point. I can't fault you for that. Either way, mate, great job on the victory. A very strong victory as well. Very well thought out victory. Now I want to go ahead and talk with our second place finisher, scored Buffalo. Buffalo, the good news, you come home second after starting second. The bad news, you're actually going to lose ground in the championship to your closest rival. What do you have to say about your run today?
It was...
Buffalo, I can't hear you.
Oh, wait, hold on.
Oh, I hear you now all of a sudden. That's weird.
Okay, that's cool. I kind of expected it to go like this, but I wasn't really expecting to close down on Lucky that much, considering what happened in like the first half of the race where me and Bryant were fighting and Lucky just had clean air, and I didn't have the pace initially, so I didn't think it was gonna be that close when the checkered flag fell. But I mean, it was pretty good still. I'll still take a second place.
All right, so this is honestly the first time this year since Sebring where you have not been the winner while running at the end of the race. Very uncharacteristic of you. You still have about half the season left. Is this going to get in your head, or do you think you can still go off and win the rest of the races this season?
I mean, it's still possible for me to. I mean, I can't really predict whether how fast everyone's gonna be, whether I'm gonna be able to make all the races, or if something happens during the race. So it's possible for me to, but it's kind of hard to say whether I can. But I mean, running second place here today, I mean, it is what it is, especially with running with minimal practice. I kind of expected it to be this way, so it's fine.
All right, well, either way, mate, doesn't matter how we look at it. It was a pretty strong run. You put on a lot of good fighting at the start, at the end of the race. We look forward to seeing what you can do across the rest of the season, mate. Great drive out there.
Thank you.
All right, we're not able to get any word from our third place finisher, Bryant, for some reason. Kind of a shame, because I really wanted to hear what he had to say. But we are going to get to hear from our 4th place finisher, Mr. Sunshine. Sunshine, please go ahead, include your audio. I saw at the end there, you had a tire let go on you in the last 2 corners, but still came home 4th. What do you have to say about your run today?
It went exactly as planned. No, the tire was a little close. I was killing some lap times in the middle of the race as opposed to just lapping like I originally planned on. But, I mean, 81%, it still wasn't dead. It was close, but it wasn't. So, I'm just happy I was able to string everything together.
All right, so a 4th place finish here. Realistically, you still are in championship contention. But even beyond that, I think you're going to pretty much lock up 3rd place in the championship as long as you don't miss any other races in the season. I hate to say it, there's not really a whole lot else to say, but I do want to give you the floor so you can go ahead and promote the new thing that your personal league is going to be doing, though, over the next few weeks.
Oh.
So feel free to promote there.
Thank you. Yeah, we're starting the Nürburgring series, which will run on Sundays at 12:15 Eastern. And then round 3 of that is also a standalone endurance event that runs on August 26th, also at the Nürburgring. And all that information is available in the SRL server.
All right, so feel free to reach out to Mr. Sunshine, and he can get you hooked up on that if you're interested. Great job. Very quiet outside the last lap or so. Very quiet race from you, Sunshine, bringing home 4th. Good showing out there. Again, I'm really ashamed to not be able to hear from TNR Bryant, who was the highest finishing of our Chevy drivers, but I think there was a different Chevy driver who was even more impressive. RZX U5AMVP, go ahead and include your audio. You were ran off the circuit at least twice in the first third of this race, and you still came home with a 5th place finish. I personally have to say, driver of the day performance. What do you have to say about your run today?
I'd say I had a word for it. Not to be real happy with how that first half went. I'm pretty sure I dropped all the way down to 12th at one point. And it was like, couldn't catch a break. And I finally started getting in the rhythm, and I just did whatever I could. I was hoping I could race Horizon there at the end, but that last curve before the straight kind of got him, and just kind of ended his race to battle for a top 5.
All right, well, fantastic drive. I have to ask, Chevrolet got a significant increase. It already was pretty strong on grip. Now it's an absolute grip monster. How did you feel that the change in the BOP benefited or even maybe harmed you in today's event?
Well, with how the race went, it was hard to tell from the get-go. So I don't know. I think I'll have a better feeling next week if I don't have the start I did today. But I don't know. I guess I'll try to figure it out more in the weeks to come.
All right, thanks for jumping in and talking with us, mate. Yeah, put together a pretty interesting run, brought home a great 5th place. I say driver of the day. I want to go ahead and try to talk with our next driver who is on the grid, TNR Horizon. Horizon, go ahead, include your audio. Not quite a top 5 finish after running in the top 5 a good chunk of the day. What do you have to say about your run?
I mean, it was kind of a good thing to where I was. Like, I don't really know what the word would be for it. Higher than I expected, because this was always going to be, I mean, I even said it last week, these Laguna and Suzuka back-to-back, it was going to be brutal in the Aston. I mean, it was just destined to be. I'm happy to be through with this stretch and getting more back to GP tracks after this, a little bit longer straightaways. Because when it's just turning after turning, this Aston just isn't quick. And it's just a fact of the car. And then also with the BOP being adjusted this week, every other car was going to be right back up with me, or if not faster than me, than they were going to be already. So honestly, could have been way worse than it was.
All right, well, 6th place, and you ran top 5 for a good chunk of the day. are we going to see you again throughout the rest of the season? Because this was honestly a respectable showing, all things considered. You were at the disadvantage with the BOP at a track you're not good at. If this is considered a bad circuit, bad day, bad everything for you, can we see you stick around a bit and maybe see what a proper good day at a good track is?
Oh, I mean, yeah, I'm going to, finish out the season. I mean, I'm in 4th right behind Sunshine, so I don't see any reason why I shouldn't just by, having my bad track of the series. I mean, it happens. I don't know if that was a question for me or for Bryant, but I think Bryant might be sticking around as well.
Yeah, well, there are several, I will admit there are a lot of sweats that showed up for like 1 or 2 races early on and bounced when they realized the BOP wasn't in their favor. And I won't lie, I'm going to be confusing a lot of you guys. So
yeah.
I would have asked the same question of Bryant. I'm going to ask the same question of some other people because I legit really have trouble telling you all apart, honestly.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, he should be back. I'll be back till the end of the season. I still have, points battles to fight for. My season isn't over by any means, but I think just for competition-wise, Bryant might not be back for every single race, but he'll be back for a few more, or should be.
All right. Well, Horizon, great performance. Great to see you out there, bringing it home in 6. Solid run, and thanks for jumping in and talking with us. Real quickly now, I want to talk with our 7th place finisher, Mabey Racing. Maybe go ahead and include your audio. You were the highest finishing of all the BMW drivers that wasn't scored Buffalo. What do you have to say about your run today?
About where I expected to be. Not good at this track, don't really get along with it, and 5th place was maybe within reach, but it would have been really tough. Just didn't quite have the pace at the end there to get there, and 7th is about where it should have been.
All right, well, we're heading back to a stretch of European circuits after this. What are your anticipations for yourself in this car throughout the rest of the season?
I believe next to Silverstone, which is also another one of my tracks that I'm not super good at, but I can at least hold my own there. Should be a little bit better. Should be a little bit better for the BMW as well. After that, I don't know what it is, but Spa is the big one that I'm marking on the calendar.
All right, well, we'll definitely be looking forward to your performance both at Spa and Silverstone. 7th place, pretty solid run. At one point, even as high as 3rd place, ended up coming home 7th. Great performance. Thanks for jumping in and talking with us. I want to talk next with RZM Brett. Brett, please go ahead and include your audio. All things considered, we've not seen a Lamborghini on track for several weeks, and you showed up, and while it wasn't a great result, it was some fantastic racing watching you go at it with everyone else. What do you have to say about your run out there today?
Yeah, I was pretty happy with my quali lap. I put it up pretty high on the grid, and I had solid pace. I just got punted off at the start, but it was a tough situation, 3 wide, not enough room. So it is what it is. Left me fighting through the field, but it was pretty fun. I got caught up with Alan and Shredder there. We had battled for quite a while, so. The new BOP on the Lambo helped me out a lot. I've been pretty uncompetitive, if I'm being honest, recently. But these new upgrades helped me out, so.
All right, one more question to ask. I was so focused on the fat at the front, I don't think I saw it happen. Last I looked, Lud1cr0us was in 8th, and you were in 9th. How did you get ahead of that Chevy in those closing laps there?
Well, I got lucky. Alan had a little mistake there, and he got screwed up in the grass, and he went off. I was able to pass him and pull a pretty big gap by the end of the race. So.
That explains it.
Yep.
All right. By the way, Brett, thanks for jumping in. Will you be running with us throughout the rest of the season?
No, try my best. Yep.
All right. Well, I appreciate your honesty. Love to definitely see you again. Hopefully with a bit of a stronger start, so we can really get an idea of what your actual pace is. By the way, 8th place on the return for RZM Brett. Now I want to talk with our 9th place finisher, Ludicrous Speed. Ludicrous, interesting run. You were kind of in the same position as RZX. I saw twice in the first 3 laps. You got chucked off the circuit, and it was all the way back to like 14th, 15th. Still came home 9th after fighting for a top 10 position all day today. What do you have to say about your run out there?
Well, the first incident, I made the rookie mistake of looking back in that little section between the hairpin of Spoon. That's just suicide. And And then the second time I was off track, I tried to take Prius on the inside going up the hill, and just that light tap put him around. So I decided to just pull off, just just to be like, here, I didn't mean it. But no, first half felt great. Car felt fantastic all the way throughout. It was just, it was all on me. The second half, I just fell off. I couldn't stay focused. I'm like everybody else. I don't like this track, at least on this game. It was fun on Motorsport 6 and Motorsport. I think it was in Motorsport 4. But
this was not in Motorsport 6. Suzuka was not in 6. It was in 4 though.
Oh, it was fun. I remember being fun in 4. It's just the curbs, man. You touch a curb, you're going into the gravel. And then same with the incident where Brett overtook me coming off of that long uphill left after the S's. You're going at such a high rate of speed. All I did was look at the grass wrong, and I got hooked hard left into the wall and then into the gravel. So it was just a frustrating day, but moreover, I'm happy that I was able to get the car fixed. It feels fantastic, and I'm looking forward to running with this thing for the rest of the season.
All right, Silverstone's up next. Silverstone is a circuit that's a lot more acceleration focused, not really top speed focused anymore after the reconfiguration's done over about a decade and a half ago, but it's very acceleration focused. Chevrolet got a massive BOP change going into this week. How do you think the BOP is going to affect your performance there at Silverstone?
It definitely helped me out here. I was able to get out of the corners like the hairpin especially. I was able to beat a lot of people out of the hairpin. Those fatter tires allow me to put the power down way easier. I usually do pretty good at Silverstone. I like Silverstone. So we'll just have to see what happens, but I am looking forward to that one for sure, especially with it being in the wet.
All right, well, thanks for jumping in. One last thing to tell you, Ludicrous. I was watching earlier in the day when you were fighting with Shredder. Fantastic overtake. And while I have to give RZX driver of the day for just, being completely knocked out and coming back to a top 5, for the most impressive overtake, though, I think has to go to you. At one point, you were fighting with Shredder, going side by side. I believe it was Shredder. May have been TD, but I'm pretty sure it was Shredder. Side by side into turn 1. Shredder had about 9/10 of his car ahead of you on the inside. You had no fear whatsoever and sent it around the outside. And you went from being 9/10 of the car behind him to completely ahead of him, coming out of 1. On the outside at Suzuka. That was incredible.
Oh, that's not the only outside overtake I had.
Yeah, I saw a few other people do some other similar things. I even saw you make a similar situation where you were behind somebody and you came out on the outside side by side with them. But yeah, that really stuck out to me. That was really impressive. So I just want to say, really put on some fantastic drives out there, mate.
Well, I had a second one. I overtook Brett on the outside through the hairpin. Don't know how that happened, but I got it to work.
Incredible stuff out there. 9th place finish, mate. Definitely good, but could have been better. Thanks for jumping in and talking with us, though.
Yeah, I'm going to go eat something and check the Cubs score.
All right, I want to talk real quickly with Prius Killer here. Prius, assuming you're still in the party because I know this has been a long time. Prius, go ahead, include your audio. 10th place finish with a fight that really went down to the last few corners between you and Shredder. What do you have to say about your run out there?
I didn't have much pace according to really anyone around me. Everyone behind me that I was faster than decided to quit besides Matter, so good for him for at least finishing. And throughout the first...
He didn't finish. Matt didn't finish either. Matt didn't make it to the start-finish line to finish the race.
Well, he at least didn't leave the lobby, so good for him. And then there was the first bit of the race where just everyone decided they wanted to wreck me. Alan, he tapped the loosest car in the field, and then I just spun, and TJ with his amazing rejoin. Everyone just wanted to screw me over at the start of the race there, and yeah, just had no pace after that.
Well, you still brought it home 10th overall. I'm just saying, yeah, it's like second to last of everyone on the lead lap, but like you still come home 10th. You can't see it as that bad, can you?
I mean, compared to where I have been pace-wise for every other race, yes. But with the new BOP and the fact that, honestly, there are some people that should have been beating me, this is probably where I should be with the new cars.
All right, well, next week is Silverstone. It's a lot flatter of a circuit. Still curbs, but not as bad. And it's a more acceleration-focused circuit instead of just pure handling. How do you feel about the Bentley running there?
Well, the last time I was at Silverstone, I won with a lagged out Sunshine, although I was on pace with him, so I might have still been able to win with him there. So I'm really hoping that it can go well for me. I do like the track, and the first rain race we had for the season, the car was surprisingly good. So I'm hoping I can win, not win, but maybe top 5.
All right, well, top 10 here at least. Top 5 maybe in the cards. We'll see. By the way, thanks for sticking around and talking with us, Prius. And now, next driver to talk to, Shredder. Also, Matter, if you're in the party, I don't know if you can hear me or not. You say it still says that you're connecting. Go ahead and bounce out and then jump back into the party so I can try and get an interview with you. Shredder, go ahead, include your audio. That was rough. There's no way around it. That was a rough race. Last of everyone on the lead lap, not even in the top 10. After so many strong results over the last 3 weeks, what happened?
It's Suzuka. It's one of the worst, if probably not the worst track in Forza. I don't agree with any of the corners. I can't tune for shit around there. I don't like it. I don't do good around there. That's essentially why I was so slow and also made so many mistakes. But the overtake you said with Adam, the reason he got past me is because I put a millimeter of my wheel onto the curb and they even told me to fuck off, so I essentially had to get out the power. That's pretty much the only reason he got ahead of me. And that exact same thing happened with Brett as well, which is how Brett got ahead of me. Like, if I hadn't hit that inside curb, I probably would have kept him behind me for another 5 or 6 more laps, but I tapped that and lost all momentum and he shot off into the S's and I couldn't do anything beyond that.
All right, still a rough run. Next week is your home circuit. You're going to Silverstone. What are your anticipations there?
It's going to be borderline because that's another one where it's similar-ish corners to this, maybe. I mean, over the past few years, I've been high mid-pack, roughly, in cars at Silverstone. But there's a lot of competitive people in this thing, so I can't really say if... Well, I don't know how good or bad I'm going to do there. This is the truthful answer.
All right, well, at least you stuck around, and at least you're able to finish on the lead lap. Put on an interesting show between yourself and Prius to the end there. Thanks for jumping in and talking with us. One last question. This is more from the perspective of a official. Last week I said, hey, look, BOP is screwed, is a little bit backwards. The BMW is massively overfavored. Instead of nerfing the BMW, the choice was made to bump up every car that wasn't a BMW, Bentley, or Aston. We're a race afterwards. What are your opinions on the results of that BOP change?
Yeah, I mean, original BOP, I said I wasn't going to change anything, but then a lot of the drivers threw up good reasons as to sort of why we should have a BOP change. So I did some testing with them, got them up and bounced and whatnot. And yeah, the only things you can really do with the beam is take away tyre whips, and I know from experience that it will be down by about half a second a lap, and the Bentley will be the shooter for that point. The top 4, the Beamer, Aston, Bentley, and the other car that I can't think of, I'm really bad, but we're balanced to each other at the moment. So it's more easier to get the other cars up to that level and keep the original balance as it is.
Fair enough. But are you happy with the way that the results turned out today?
I mean, everyone seemed a lot more competitive in the cars. I mean, the Lamborghini actually made some maneuvers and had some pace, which is not something that could be said of Road America, I think it was just spinning every third corner. And also, Sunshine in the Porsche went from finishing 10th, 11th last week to finishing 4th. That meant, yeah, he has talent, so we know he should be up there, so I think it's good enough.
All right, well, thanks for jumping in and talking with us. Real quickly, I'm going to try and talk with you, Matter. It says that you're included properly now. So, Matter, running at the finish, but technically don't finish the race just because you were a lap and a half down. What do you have to say about your run today? Because that looked unbearably boring and depressing. What was that like?
Like you said, very boring and depressing. Very inconsistent, as I've not done any practice for this race this week, but hopefully with Silverstone next week in the rain, the car will drive better and will finish better, hopefully, next week.
All right, anything else you want to say before we close out the broadcast here?
Nope.
All right. Well, that's the word from TFB Matter, our last of their drivers right at the end. And again, real quickly, 13th place was TTJ111. 14th was Porsche FL after he went a lap down. 15th was GRM Jagged. 16th was Rockmorrow. Last place, DMS Aspect, and 17th. With that in mind, I've been your host for today's broadcast, Insane Leader 13. Next week, you can see the series get underway at Silverstone, the home for many of the British drivers in the series. Until then, I encourage you to have a good time, good day, and goodbye.